Leaving one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
leaving one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
leaving one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
leaving one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
leaving one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again.
one side open because
They would forget to unlock them again. They would forget to unlock them again.
I just assumed you got them all. What we talking about? I just assumed you got them all. What we talking about? I just assumed you got them all. What we talking about? I just assumed you. What we talking about? I just assumed you.
No offense, but.
Okay, so I think the magic, it's on.
So they're gonna get to see everything, but everybody's gonna have to mind.
I think it. Wait, last one. Watch, it won't do it this time. So we got to deal with in person first, and secondarily is after.
Stan, what is the temperature on behind you? What's the temperature on behind you?
Oh, temperature, 74. Hot up there or cold up there? We just kicked on.
I'm feeling good, but. I know. That's why I'm feeling good. I'm like, please don't miss. You don't like it. No.
No?
Oh,
Put it down to 62?
no.
No, if you, down to 72 is fine. Or 73, just get it.
I got math on 74, but,
Did you see I redid all this today? Brown, dark brown.
Did it,
You did it. They don't want, and Austin's is on a piece of cardboard. The mayor took his plaque. I couldn't make that up. Oh, yeah, we're the scroll thing. She said no. Okay. Later in the evening.
Yeah.
Everybody's never laughed, you know, and I said, well, what did I say? You know? I said, stood back in the ball, I said, draw you. And she was just, oh, you want a bear school?
Must be. I'll look you up.
Hello, how are you?
Chicken tenders. Lactose and macaroni and cheese with each other. You are too much, girl. So. I'm blessed you. And for. I got some more, I'll bring. But everything's in the box for each of you. Oh my gosh, all right. I know, she is.
But they only had 8 fries pies, so we're just in a sack. First come,
First come, first serve on the fried pies, no promises. Oh my gosh. Thank you for this, by the way. We're gonna have everyone in here that's here very hungry.
Oh, okay.
I mean, really, almost everything we used to have was fried when I
Yep.
was growing up.
Yep. So I guess I'm at least doing a little bit right.
Right? Hey, Gary.
How are you?
Good. How are you today? You're a lot better. Well, you look alive. Yeah. I'd like to call the special meeting to order for the Kennedale City Council on August 24th, 2021 at 5:30 PM in the council chambers. Members of the public have access to a live feed without the option for public comment. At this time, Rosie, have you accepted any speaker forms?
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, thank you. And may we have a roll call, please?
Jan Joplin. Here. Gary Mitchell. Here. Julie Jacobson's absent. Mayor Rhodes.
Here.
Austin Dagenhart. Here. And James Connor.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take things a little bit out of order. We're going to let the work session part be at the last. We're going to go ahead into special session. And the first item is consider authorizing the interim city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Dunaway for interim municipal planning consultant services at a maximum cost of $6,000 per month. City manager?
Mayor and council, as you know, we do have some vacancies in the community development department, including our director. Until that vacancy is filled, we have contacted Dunaway, and we have tonight with us Chance LeBlanc, who would be our main contact under this contract to help us process P&Z applications, BOA applications, answer some just general plating and planning questions that staff needs assistance on. And then we would also have access to Barry Hudson, who actually worked on the 2006 comprehensive plan. So he has a history with Kennedale, and he would be our escalation point. So if anyone has any questions about the contract, or if you have any questions for Chance, he's here tonight.
I'm Chance. I'm the planner with Dunaway. If you have any questions, we have to answer.
Thank you.
I guess this is closer to the.
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any council person have any comments or questions for Les?
I have a few comments and questions.
Okay.
How long is this term going to last? Do we know?
There's not a term defined in the contract, but depending upon council's direction as far as when we should fill that director role, that would determine how long the engagement would last.
Because I guess this would actually be a question for Lakita and the interim city manager. Is this money that said the $6,000 monthly, is this already budgeted for? Or is this not budgeted for anything?
It's not specifically budgeted, but we do have two vacancies in that department between the director and the planner.
And do we know how much those salaries are?
I don't know off the top of my head what those salaries are exactly. No.
The reason why I'm asking is because if it's not budgeted for, even though we have the vacancies and it's not budgeted for, $6,000 a month is an awful lot of money. And if we don't have somebody in those places for like 3 months, 4 months, or however long it takes to get somebody in there, I'm concerned that we might run over that type of a budget, especially if the pricing, especially if the salaries for those two vacancies are less than $6,000 a month. I mean, if we have $6,000 a month to just give a consulting agency, why don't we have any more money to give to our police, our streets, our fire department, our senior citizen center? That's what I'm concerned about. 6,000 is a bit much. And if it's not budgeted, that's extra money that could be going somewhere else within our city.
Yes. Lakita, do you have any salary information that you could provide that could help them make a decision on that? On how much salary savings are we having with the director position and the planner position being open? Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that? 70,000. So those two positions right there that are vacant, they equal out to around $6,000 a month.
For the city position, virtual play.
Okay.
And because the interim city manager is
Yeah.
still in person, there's also a vacancy in city secretary. So that total all collectively is about 70,000.
So it's about 70,000. So if this is for like maybe a 3-month duration, maybe a 4-month duration, I could see that happening. Anything extended after I would not see the benefits of that. Simple math would be, $72,000 a year.
I guess just from a customer service perspective, we've already put off P and Z and BOA cases for 2 months.
Quite some time.
So I am hesitant to continue to put those people off.
I'm hesitant to do it too, but again, at $6,000 a month, that's quite a bit of money.
Would staff feel comfortable if we put a time limit on that to state, to enter into this contract through the end of this year, meaning December 31st year, not calendar year, not fiscal year,
Right,
or sooner?
right.
I would feel a lot more comfortable if a time frame was put on it. Therefore, we can realize those savings in those positions that are not currently filled. Instead of having to go, out and keep going and keep going. I mean, I understand that consulting agency is a good thing. I did read through everything. Everything looks in order. I'm just concerned about the monetary portion of it because it's not budgeted for.
The staff,
I'm comfortable with through the end of the calendar year unless services are not needed for that long. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions or comments? Council? Okay,
I guess I just would like to know exactly what they would do. In other words, you kind of touched on it, but I mean, I'd like to go into a little bit more depth.
Right.
So in other words, you said they would help with the P and Z to move it along. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, whenever we have an application for, say, a zoning change, staff does the research to recommend if that zoning change would fit within, the comprehensive plan and
Okay.
things like that. And I don't have that expertise.
Right.
We don't have anybody in that department right now with that expertise.
So we're pretty much at a hold,
Yes.
just on hold until we get
Yes.
somebody to do that. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
So for me, it looks like it's very, very part-time because it's 6,000 max a month, max. You're looking at
48 hours.
48 hours. So, I mean, you're talking 12 hours a week,
It's very minimal.
so every minute that we get better be like maximum minutes.
Right.
I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying is that's not a lot of hours. That's what I'm saying for what we need. And so I'm hoping that for what we need, that you can get all that done. And what I'm hoping for is I do know that we have people in queue right now
Yes.
that have been waiting for very patiently for us to get someone. So my question is, this position is interim until we get our city manager in place. And then the city manager can interview for the director positions. Is this kind of what I'm?
I believe the only one that's proposed for delay is community development. We are planning, no. Oh, well, and city manager, yes, but we are planning to interview for public works and HR.
We were planning to still retain the savings from those positions and utilize the contract since it is pretty dire right now. Keep in mind that the planner position is now vacant.
Right.
And so that's about $50,000 a year salary within that department
Right.
as well. And I figured that one may not be filled until we get a pay director to hire that person.
Right.
So that can kind of, take up some of the slack. With that, we want to still retain the 70,000 savings in this proposed budget.
Right. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say is what I also heard you say, which has nothing to do with you, but with the city manager position that we were proposing to put that on hold until December. And I'm kind of feeling like if we do find a city manager sooner, that we don't wait until December, if that should happen. And we don't know because we we don't know, what you don't know, you don't know. But I would just put that out there that if we find, a person that comes along and things work out, that we can make that decision before December. But that's my only, thought that I wanted to make out loud was that that's 48 hours, that's 12 hours a week. And that means that, basically you hit the ground running. And I looked at your bio. It's a baby bio. It's a very baby bio online. How long have you been involved in city planning?
I've been involved in city planning.
Okay. It's all been with city planning?
The other half is a lot of it side development. So
Can you see if that microphone's on? Because I don't know if there's anyone watching online, but I don't.
there you go. I'm sorry, I didn't have it on.
Okay, there you go. I want to make sure that they can hear your answers as well. Can you just give me like 3 or 4 city, and I know you've done, I'm just like curious. I'm a curious person.
That's fine.
So what cities that you've done work for?
We've done for Justin. We've done for Lake Worth. We've done for Bartonville. We have done stuff for Lakeside, Crowley.
And then your part in it is it similar to what you're doing for us?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, basically all planning in a nutshell is all zoning and
Yeah.
it's basically, so in a lot of these cities in this area, all their zoning is pretty much standard. So once you have kind of a general knowledge of it, you can hit the ground running pretty quick because it's all just, there might be some little nuances here and there, but in generalities, it's all kind of.
So you're going to like study in advance so that when that first minute.
I will have your zoning ordinance and subdivision standards read.
Okay. So you made me think of something else. Hold on. And so if you, as you come in and you're hit the ground running for us and you see things that maybe we might be able to do better or suggestions, you can make those along the way as well, right? Well, just in our, like with what you're doing and.
I mean, that's
what you do.
We can make.
Yeah.
We can make.
Because that's just what we want to do is I'm not saying we don't do things good. I'm just saying we always want to just make sure we're doing things quality and if we can do things better at a higher level for the same, level of the minute of the service that we're getting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have
One other thing, Mayor, I'm sorry. Just the way I read this, it's not a length in any term in the contract. It's just month to month or week to week or day to day, correct? So if we fill a position, we feel like we no longer need their services, then we're done, right? Okay.
Correct, right.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay, you do. Go ahead.
Just a quick observation and looking at the rate structure, I see that the rates are very competitive with what we typically see in the Metroplex for professional services. So just as some knowledge for other council members and the public, the rates being proposed are fair.
Okay. And just for clarification, our planning and zoning meetings and the Board of Adjustment meetings, you would be attending those?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
September 9th and 13th, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Don't make me lie, but I'm pretty sure you're right.
Okay, thank you.
Just have a few more that they actually brought up. Thank you. Excuse me. Now, I understand that you're going to be serving as a consultant through P&Z and BOA. Would they be making the final decisions for any zoning changes or anything?
Yes, yes.
Recommendation.
The board would vote as usual, yes.
Okay. My main concern with that is would you take the citizens' voices into consideration?
Well, what we'll do is we're going by yes and no. I mean, first of all, what we do is we read your zoning ordinance and go by this ordinance. To us, it's, we do an interpretation and we just give our interpretation of that, and that's y'all's decision to judge on that.
Okay. Well, I know that it has to eventually come through us anyways, but my main thing is that, I would hope that you would take the citizen. So if something were to come up and say citizens don't like it.
Right.
don't approve something and to have it to come to us, for us to sit there and go, citizens said, no, why are we doing this? So again, hopefully you'll take the citizens' voices into consideration when approving and denying.
Right, but if it's something allowed by right or permitted by right in your zoning ordinance, then, it has the right to go through, even with, the voice of the citizens.
It does have the right to go through, but
Right.
even with the voices of the citizens, I feel that it should be denied if it does get to that.
Okay. And that's on.
And that's why I said,
Yeah.
take their voices into consideration.
Okay, anything else? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the floor then for a motion.
I would make a motion for the interim city manager to enter into a professional service agreement with Dunaway Consulting Services at a maximum cost of $6,000 per month.
I'll second that motion.
Did you want to put a time constraint?
No, I think that's been clearly, we can, but I think it has been made that it's day to day, month to month. It's on an as need basis until we get ours in, and then you'll fade out unless
Okay.
you'd prefer. I'm good with
Okay,
the way it is.
The motion stands. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's call for a vote, but with a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed, raise your hand. Okay, motion passes with a 3-1 vote. Next item.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Consider approval of a developer's agreement for the Alta 287 development at 3100 Joplin Road. Interim city manager.
Mayor and council, it was recently brought to staff's attention that we did not have this sorry, can you hear me? That we did not have this developer's agreement in place, which we normally would at this point in the process. So we've been working with the city attorney and city engineers to finalize the agreement, and it's in your packet. I know I've received some questions from the mayor and I believe Councilmember Degenhart today regarding this agreement. It's pretty standard in its form as far as looking at it compared to other developers agreements in the past, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Go ahead, please. Councilmember Joplin.
So I just want to know, is this more of a formality? Because this council this council wasn't a part of any of this. I don't know anything about this. And if I'm voting on what's in here, I feel like a full presentation needs to be made to me before I vote on it.
I understand.
But if it's a formality, then that's a different story.
And we can prepare for that if needed. In order for them to pull their construction permits, the developer's agreement needs to be in place. So I was trying to expedite on behalf of the contractor, the developer. We can pull together a full presentation if that would make the council more comfortable. I just didn't have time to do so before this meeting, and I wanted to give you all the opportunity to approve it if you felt comfortable.
So I don't feel uncomfortable. I just need to be made to feel comfortable.
Right. So basically what it is outlining is the fees will be paid, the impact fees that will be paid, the park fees, and that we will maintain maintenance bonds. They have 1 year from the time that the contract is executed to finish all of the improvements on the land to our approval. And if they don't, then the bonds can be leveraged in order for the city to go ahead and finalize the development or any improvements related to.
And this is, I'm so sorry, because I really didn't
I
dive into
understand.
this. I was
know.
diving into the budget and more Chance and the consultant. So we're talking about which development?
It's 3100 Joplin, the Alta 287.
So by the Albertsons. So that's why I just got confused, because I'm reading about the Hillside,
Right.
about Hillside and
Yes.
sanitary. So I'm like, what?
That was
Why is
corrected.
Hillside on here? And it's,
Yes, I had to send a correction to that. Again, these are basically cut and paste each time. They all say the same thing. That got left in.
okay, so
from
that
a
isn't,
former
that's why I
agreement.
got
So
confused.
That's
That's a long way from.
yes,
there.
that's been removed from
Okay.
the final. The only other change that was made was we added that the sidewalks would be installed per the approved plans because it did not list the sidewalk locations.
Okay, so I had another question, but I'll let you guys go ahead until that circles back to me.
Okay, Gary.
Well, a comment more than a question, I guess, but since we've just hired this firm, isn't this something what they do to look things over before we move forward? And do you think that we need to let them look at this before we go forward with this or not?
I feel comfortable with it as it is. I've had the engineering team look at it. I've had the attorneys look at it. It's so similar to the ones that have been adopted in the past.
Because I know there's already a stink over there over this development. And I know you've been catching some flack. And all we need to do is do the wrong thing.
I hear you, and I
know what I'm
completely
saying?
understand if this is not something that you all are ready to vote on tonight, and we can put together a better presentation for you if we need to hold on it. I just wanted to be able to tell the developer I did my best to
Right.
expedite it if possible.
And then one other thing, it's, I was reading on, I think it's on like page 2, it says, such documents shall be approved by the city engineer or his agent prior to approval and filling out of the final plat. So when they submit from their engineer to our engineer, do we have to pay our engineer or do they pay our engineering fees? Because I read in there somewhere else that they pick up some of the.
Right.
engineer fee.
Our fee schedule allows for any payment that goes to our engineers to be passed through to the developer. So we've already paid our engineers all that needs to be paid so far. So we just need to bill them for that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Austin.
Am I correct in understanding that we can't bill them for that amount until this document has been executed?
I'm not positive what the answer to that is, but probably.
Okay.
We can't hold them to paying it because we haven't executed the document.
Any other questions? Jane?
So am I to understand that they have been building without this being in place this entire time?
And they're not building tonight. They've been grading and
Yeah,
clearing.
they've been grading down the land, they've been removing trees, they've been
Just not building.
knocking down fences, so to speak.
Right.
But
And this is more of an administrative failure than a developer failure.
Yeah, I
In fact, it's completely an administrative failure.
So again, my question is, well, I guess this would be a separate one. Would they still be able to continue grading if this document was not passed?
They would be able to continue grading. They would not be able to pull the construction permits they need to move forward.
I think I'm with Jan on this one. I would like to see some kind of a development presentation on this before we continue.
Understood.
Okay, and then I'll just have a comment too. We also added a date line on the signature page because these documents are time sensitive as far as like deadlines and stuff are concerned. That's pretty minor. The development agreement, like Leslie said, is pretty standard. However, with that being said, it's the timing that did not take place probably appropriately. And I know we're still trying to find some information out on that as far as where we for sure are. I hesitated to sign the document because I wanted to make sure that we had all of the performance bonds in place. There's maintenance bonds, there's fees that we need to be sure that's paid that I believe probably some of them have been paid, but I don't know that all of them have been paid. And the way that that agreement reads is those items need to be done kind of simultaneously with the developer's agreement. And then the maintenance bond, whenever the time starts ticking on that, has to do after the final plat has been approved. And we issue a letter of acceptance, and that letter of acceptance will be dated as well to start the next time clock ticking as far as when all the maintenance responsibilities are relieved from the developer and it actually falls on the city. So those are pretty important documents that we need to make sure are in place properly to protect the city as well. Basically, with that all being said, because this was new to me too, so we wanted to get this out here to make y'all aware. And also at the same time, the developers waiting, they're ready now. They're ready to move forward. And this is kind of in our face right now. So your options are either to table this item until a future council meeting at time that the staff has all the information ready for us, or to authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the development agreement with this developer contingent upon applicable fees being paid and all bonds in place. So with that being said, do you have anything to add, Leslie?
I don't have anything to add other than you are saying for me to execute rather than for the mayor to execute, correct?
That is correct. That way that was what the city attorney had suggested.
I just wanted to make sure that was a small change and who was signing, so.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Or we could leave it as the mayor if the council gives us permission to do that. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have one comment on this. My day job is in the construction industry. And right now we're seeing material impacts and price impacts that fluctuate on a daily basis to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars for some items. And what I would be fearful of in delaying the approval of this contract would be negative contractual implications for the developer and the project as a whole. Delaying this, if by delaying this, we delay his actual start of construction and the permit and him being able to go vertical based upon his construction schedule, that may have longer term implications down the road that may impact the project negatively.
That's true. Thus, with that being said, probably that second option, either to authorize the city manager or the mayor, whichever one that you feel comfortable in doing, contingent upon that the fees be paid and all proper bonds are in place for the city. So, any other comments then? No, I appreciate that comment. Okay.
Can I just add one thing? This has already been approved by council. This project was approved by a prior council. The development agreement was not the responsibility of council. It was a responsibility of an administrative position. And so that's what we're working with now, is just getting the development agreement that I dotted so that the developer can proceed based on what's already been voted on.
Right.
Yes.
I appreciate your comment as well. So I'm feeling more comfortable. We'll make a motion. Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we allow the interim city manager to sign the developer agreement for the Alta 287 development at 3100 Joplin Road, with adding that all fees and bonds would be in place for the city. Great.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
One question really.
Okay.
What is it currently zoned right now? Does anyone know?
It's zone multifamily, but this wouldn't affect the zoning.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no other comments or questions, open the floor for a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All in favor, motion approves.
Thank you all. I appreciate your faith in me on that one. We'll get it done right.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item is under the work session, continued discussion of the fiscal year 2021, 2022 proposed budget. Lakita?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you are aware, we presented the budget and we left it open to receive input from council. We are looking at the way the budget is presented now with the tax rate remaining the same, 77 cents, supporting the revenues and expenditures that we have presented in the proposed budget. That will give us a fund balance of 11.1% in the general fund. As we know, that's the one we kind of need to keep an eye on. We presented a number of ideas that we thought would work to help us reduce expenditures and or increase revenue where we thought we could. And so really this evening, we're just receiving your input.
Okay, let's start on this end. Councilmember Joplin.
Okay, so I just want to review the first meeting that we had was a presentation where we didn't have a book. It was a presentation with what I would call a fully loaded. All of the department heads came up and spoke and presented to us, what their wish list was. And it was more of a, if we have all the money in the world, this is what we would want for a budget. We didn't have anything else to go by that night other than really just listening and hearing from our department heads and what they were asking for and what that looked like. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was about $1.5 million expenses over revenue. The next meeting, we were given recommendations to take that down so that it went from 1.5 to, I believe, 900,000. And the recommendations were given. We did receive the proposed budget the night before the meeting. So the majority of us did not have time to review this much. So that Tuesday night was really still hearing from you as a finance director, what your recommendations were for us. And I know for me personally was just more absorbing and listening to what your recommendations were because I hadn't had a chance really to look at this. So with that being said, this week and next week are really our chance as council to, after having looked at it, is to ask questions and dig into other areas. So when I was on council before, I dug into the budget page by page and just went through it, mainly because I hadn't been on council before, and it was important to me to understand it, because I feel like the budget is like our anchor to what we do through the whole year and what we get or don't get or what we have or don't have. So when I went through this one, it was I haven't gone through it in that detail, but I did go through it and came up with some questions that I sent in advance. And so you have these, and I don't know if you want to address them or if you want me to ask them.
Sure. You can ask them and then we can.
Okay, so I'll start out. They're probably out of order with how I sent them to you. So I asked for I don't know if this is the right care funds update, but the
ARPA funds.
ARPA funds?
Yeah.
What's ARPA stand for?
It's the American Recovery Act.
Okay.
And we're getting pieces as we go along. This funding is going to be different from the first set of funding. It's not as easily accessible. We automatically received CARES funding. We didn't have a lot of things to do because that funding went to the county, and it came from the federal government, went through our counties, and the counties dispersed it to the cities. And that's not the way it's handled this time. So this money is coming through the state, and this TDM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, has been selected to be responsible for disbursement and, kind of abidance by the guidelines of this funding. And we're kind of getting pieces of it. So we're in the process of applying for it right now. I do believe we'll get some funding, but unfortunately, I don't know how much. And I also don't know how they're going to allow us to spend it. And I don't have any timeframes on that. So I'm working with TDM right now to get our application fully submitted. Started the process last week and we're almost there. But it's a very cumbersome process. It's not the easy thing like that first set. I hear it's going to be significantly more money. The first round was about 430,000. I hear it's going to be significantly more, but I can't commit to any number because I just
What's the number you're hearing? I'm hearing a number too. I just want to know if it matches your number.
I haven't heard anything lately. Whenever they first came out with it, I heard something like 1.8 million.
That's the number I was hearing.
So, I've been trying to nudge our TDM region person, checking in with her. Hey, do you have everything you need from us? Have we registered here? Have we registered there? Kind of trying to ask, do you have any idea what it will, no, they're not, not yet. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And thank you obviously for taking the time to get that done because that's could be critically important to us for sure. So the next question is EDC. So one of the thoughts I had, and this would be open to council, is since our street funds needs help, is an idea is taking the EDC sales tax revenue, which I believe they get 25% of the
sales
2%.
tax.
Yeah.
25%. That's right.
So if you look at the EDC page under sales tax, you'll see that there's about $500,000, $500,000 that's been proposed for sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
So if we change that and took half of that or a portion of that, half would be great. And so that the EDC only receive half that and the other half would then go to the general fund for the street fund. In order to do that, that would have to go to the ballot in May because it would have to be voted on by the citizens, I understand, for it to change that. Yeah. So even though that's not something, if approved, if, all council, wanted to do this, it could be a way for us to have more income for our street fund. And so what that would look like if it was approved in May, that would be May, June, July, August, September, 5 months of the budget, which would be about $104,000.
I'd be in favor of that.
Thoughts, Gary?
I'm in favor of anything to increase our general fund. Because at some point in time, all of us ran on getting the taxes lowered for our citizens. And we're going to have to figure out a way to do it. So that's where I stand. I don't know exactly how, why, where, but I know it's going to have to happen some way. So, and I'm like Jan, I haven't had a chance to really dig into this as well. So I was just going to do a lot of listening tonight. I know Jan's got a lot of questions, so that'll help me too. So I'm just going to pass it back to her for now.
Austin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just a question from my knowledge, rather. If we left the sales tax revenue within the EDC fund, see that their expenditures are approximately $250,000, that delta, what would happen with that delta if we left it in the EDC fund and didn't pull it out for the general fund?
Say the last part of the question. If we left it and what?
If we left it in the EDC fund, would that stay within the EDC fund for future ventures within the EDC?
if we didn't do anything,
That's correct.
yes, it would just stay in the EDIC like it does currently.
Okay.
You know, it could be used for capital to help us. But for the moment, the EDC finally has some money. And so, you know, maybe this is a good time for them to help us with our general fund. So that's kind of where I was looking at. The other thing to go along with this, with the EDC is I had done some research and found that there was an EDC project, Link Street, which is next to Popeyes, Burger King. That's where Link Street is. That was an EDC project, and the streets were being paid for out of the EDC originally, and then it was reversed and the money came out of the street fund. So my suggestion also is that was about $350,000, is that since the EDC does have some funds now, that the EDC would pay back some of those funds to the street fund. And I have all the documents to support that. Even if it was partial, that would also help our general fund this year.
And that, you know, that will require, you know, something to come down from the city manager's office. That will require research. City secretary's office, I don't have any knowledge about what happened with Link Street or anything about the borrowing and all of that. So that would have to be, you know, something that would probably require more discussion or at least more research. Because I'm not sure if anyone on this council, even including Leslie, has knowledge of when that happened or exactly what happened with that.
So I have some documents here. During the, so this is from Brady, because this was discussed at an EDC meeting, because I brought this up before because I had all the documents on it. During fiscal year 2013-14, the EDC paid for various street construction projects related to Link Street. In June of 2014, these projects were all recoded to street fund. Recoding typically occurs when we accounted for a revenue expense incorrectly. The recoding fixes this mistake and ensures revenues expenses are placed in the correct line item. A recoding implies the project was not an EDC project paid by the street fund, but instead a street project incorrectly attributed to the EDC and then corrected. In order for the EDC to send money to the street or water sewer funds, we would need clear evidence past projects were approved by the EDC and provided a clear economic development purpose, which I have all of those documents. This is the notice for the Oakcrest area. I mean, I have all the documentations on that, and we can look at that. Let's see, Oakcrest is one of the notices that were on the EDC, the land acquisition site development for Oakcrest area, including utility extension, street improvements. This all falls under an EDC document that was a public notice for all of their projects. And then it goes on to say, any refund would need to be approved by the current EDC board. Additionally, the EDC would need available funds to make this payment, which they now have. So attached is the detailed accounting reporting for all that time frame. And then this is what was provided to me by Brady. And then this is also all the reports that I have of everything that was charged from the EDC and then was then recharged to the street fund. So I do have those documents if we'd like to look at that further. And that's 350,000. So my question would be, with the EDC having $1 million-ish in their account, that this would be a good time for them to help with the general fund. It to be a good way for us to use the EDC and help us in this time. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Austin.
It definitely sounds like the surplus is there. I would be curious to find out if the EDC has those funds earmarked for other investments or other ventures happening in the 21-22 fiscal year. But other than that, I think you may be going down a good path here.
There's been a lot of fund transfers from the EDC to the street department, plus the water fund debacle that happened, God, only, 5 years ago. I would be in favor of the EDC starting to help out the general fund. I think it's time that they started helping us out when, and if possible, looking at their financials, they look sound. They have money in their accounts. Looking at their expenditures, it doesn't look like it's going to drop down very much. So I'd actually be in favor of it.
Okay, that sounds like something that the interim city manager would need to look into more depth. Obviously, that can't be decided tonight. It does appear that they are in a better position to possibly pay back if there's anything there that we find that needs to be paid back. Just to comment on your first thought that you had as far as the sales tax. My opinion, and general fund needs the money, granted, but my opinion is everybody always says they want lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes. Well, Kennedale, in the position we are, the only way that we can do that feasibly and responsibly is to get business in here. Okay. And in order to do that, we need to have our EDC money in place, and we need to start using it wisely and being aggressive in our Economic Development Corporation and seek out. You can't just sit in our office and expect the business to come to you. There are ways that the city can do that in a better manner. That's just my 2 cents. So the big answer there is to attract and to get the new business in.
Right.
I kind of have a comment on that.
Yes.
I understand you can't sit in an office and wait for the business to come, but what business wants to come to Kennedale with our streets looking like they do? We need to fix those first. We need to market our city as a place for business, whether it be a mom and pop shop or a national corporation. Mm-hmm. We have land that is currently sitting outside that it hasn't been used. It was supposed to be, there was a building that was supposed to be built there. It's still empty. I mean, there are buildings over there that have 4 lease signs up there. They're not coming here. And I don't know why, but looking at everything that I'm seeing recently, I mean, houses. You talk business, but all I see is residential. We need those businesses, yes. How are we going to market? We need to market more aggressively instead of just sitting back.
We do need to market more aggressively.
But here's the thing. We need to fix our crumbling infrastructure first. I live up the road. I couldn't get out of my driveway for the last 2 days because they're digging it up.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I asked for that information. My yard doesn't look like it does anymore, like it should anymore, but hey, hopefully they fix that. Like I said, we need the business. You're right.
Well,
but our infrastructure is crumbling.
And what brings the business is the rooftops.
And what brings the rooftops to us is having infrastructure in place.
Right. If allow
it's a dirty cycle.
Yeah. Just to speak freely, I would say that looking back and considering transferring funds from a 2016 project, that's a Band-Aid, but empowering the EDC to bring businesses in and help us build the sales tax revenue, that's a long-term solution. And we don't need one-time fixes. We need long-term solutions. So.
And I think that's a very big thing that the new city manager, whomever that is, they need to be charged with that and held responsible.
And I don't disagree with that. Just based on the history of the EDC and the knowledge that I have, I would say this would be a good faith effort if they want to make the Link Street transfer. And then we can discuss maybe the sales tax revenue, because there's still an EDC, there's still income in there. They can still do what they're doing. This isn't stopping them from what they're doing. This isn't stopping them from going out and getting businesses. I agree with Austin that I'd like to see what the projects they have on for EDC, what they have their money earmarked for. Obviously, this would have to go through the EDC. They would have to approve this, and then it would come to us. So at the moment, sometimes you can have a Band-Aid while you're looking for long-term, and I feel like that's what we're doing right now is it's not just a Band-Aid, but it's a what's the right word? It is a very helpful time to make that happen, not just a Band-Aid. It's there, it's helpful while we're looking at long-term solutions.
I would happen to agree with that. It might be, she's right. I mean, whether it be a Band-Aid or, just a ace bandage that's just keeping it all together. It would help out our general fund dramatically. Well, not dramatically, but a little bit while we look for a long-term solution.
Absolutely.
I mean, $104,000, it's more, it's 104 more than what we had.
Well, it's $350,000 is what came out of the street fund for Link Street. So even if they would be, willing to go with 200, that's 2 cents.
Well, and my thing is that the EDC doesn't need to be giving away land for $10 either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing with the EDC. The question was with the money that they have or I know what the question was. Hold on, let me think. There was a comment here in the budget about the EDC that it said that they were, there again, let's see, the economic development are expected to incur limited spending next year as we continue enhancing fund balances for future cash funding of capital projects. So that was my question is did they have something lined up already for cash projects? But it did say that they had limited spending next year. So this might be a good time for us to have that transfer and while they're still looking at long-term capital projects and what they're doing.
Let me play devil's advocate right quick. So when they say when it says that they don't have to incur limited spending, is that because those funds have already been earmarked for other projects?
They're not earmarked.
They're not?
No.
Then in that case, this is a no-brainer. It really is. I mean.
Would you be willing to have that on the EDC agenda?
They're meeting Thursday. One of the items on their agenda is consideration to repurchase the land that the hotel was meant to be on. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that was coming back up.
Yep, that's coming back up.
And I don't know the price of that either. I just know that right now they have more fund balance than they've ever had. It's almost at $1 million, but I have no idea what projects,
Yeah.
I know
the time, I know I've heard about the hotel in the Smith, but I have no idea of the timelines and things like that.
Right.
So
I believe it was purchased originally for $275,000. So from my reading of the contract, I think they would be able to repurchase it for that same amount.
Correct.
From the developer.
Yeah,
So.
and then they would still have funds.
They would still have the money. It's just the difference between using that money to attract businesses for long-term growth in the community versus stabilizing the street fund.
Yeah.
Right. Turn your speaker on.
So I've been in this city for 40-something years. And I've seen councils come and go. I've seen mayors come and go. I've seen city managers come and go. But I've always seen the same plan. Same plan is to get rid of the wrecking yards, the racetracks, any undesirable business, and be very, very careful who we allow in. That's been this city's goal forever and ever and ever. We have a man sitting right back there that's been begging to open up a business here. It still ain't happened. And he's been turned down by the BOA, and it's just ridiculous. In my opinion, it's ridiculous. I think everybody here knows Wayne Wooten. If anybody's been in Kennedale a long time, they know him. I talked to him the other day. He said that they wanted to spend $6 million putting in a truck car wash and got turned down by the city. I don't understand. We're up here trying to balance a budget that we can't budget because this city wants to be South Lake so bad. And I guarantee you, if you did a survey of every citizen in this town, they don't want to be South Lake. That's why people move to Kennedale. They don't want to be South Lake. We need a consistent business structure, and we need rooftops, and we need to work together, not just pointing out the problems, but to bring some solutions to the table to get those businesses in here. If the EDC that we have right now is not willing to go out and get businesses, we need to change them and get somebody that's willing to. That's the bottom line. That's what they've got $1 million in the bank to do it, and they've got the people in place. And if they don't understand how to promote business, then we need to change it. If this council doesn't understand how to do it, then this council needs to be changed too. I'll be the first one to say, I'm here for the city. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm in it for the city. But if I can't figure it out, then we need to put somebody in this spot that can. That's what I see. Everybody's easy to point out the issues, but what's the solutions? So if we can find solutions, then we need to work together to move forward. And it's going to start with the EDC. If they got $1 million, whether we take some of that and put it in the general fund or not, that's really irrelevant. We're not talking about a big budget decrease. I mean, we can cut some things and we can get the budget balanced out, I believe. But what's next? What's the future? What's next? If we don't go aggressively get business in here to bring in some sales tax revenues to continue to be able to put the rooftops in as well, we're not going to go anywhere. Next year, our budget will be upside down again. And the next year, even worse and even worse. So we're attacking it the wrong way as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my opinion. So I look at these numbers. I don't know how many employees the city has, but we're a city of 8,000 people and we got a ton of employees. And then, everybody wants to get a raise. I want to get a raise too. Everybody wants a raise, and you guys just got a giant raise last year. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we can't continue as a city to do the things that we're doing now. And I'm going to be the first one to sit here and say that this council, other than Austin, we fired the city manager. Okay, that cost us a little bit of money. We can overcome that as well because we did have $1.5 million surplus. Everybody got a raise. I don't know how much that was, 700,000 or 800,000. So the numbers to me look like there should have been 500 or 600 left. So that money that should have been able to get rid of the ones that left. But now all of a sudden we're in a giant hole. I don't really understand that either. So I'm going to have to sit down with somebody smarter than me to figure that one out. So I don't know exactly how we got here, but I will take some responsibility for that part of it. So, but I want us to figure out a way to move forward and to promote business is the key. That is the key. And I know you got to have rooftops, and we got a lot of rooftops coming. They're coming, and we didn't vote against any of them. Just the Linda Road project was the only one we voted against. And if you go over there and you look on the corner of that business that's on the corner right there of Linda Road, they went from, I watched this business go from nobody, no employees, completely shut down, to open it up with under a new name. I seen 3 cars there for a month. Then there was 6 or 8 cars. Now there's over 100 cars there. And I praise God every day when I drive by there and I see their success. It's amazing. That's what we need. We need some success in this town. We want people to move here because it's a quiet, quaint town, but we have a parkway here that we can promote business on. And Jeff is not even on the major highways. You can't even see him from the road because of the guys next door. I don't know what we got to do to get people like that doing business and adding to our revenues, but we got to figure that out. We got to get on the move and do some things. And I know right now that we're short-staffed and Now we've hired this company and maybe we can move some things along. But that's the key, is to get the rooftops, get the businesses in here, quit running the businesses off that are already here. Let the EDC promote what's wrong. If there's something wrong with them, let's go talk to them. Let's go talk to the businesses, get the EDC's got some money to make them a better place to operate, to be more successful, then I think that should be done. So I've been on my soapbox a long time now, but I don't like to just hear problems. I like to hear solutions. So if anybody's got a solution, I'm all ears.
Well, the solution to getting the business in the city and being aggressive with that is to have a strong EDC director. It's not the EDC board's responsibility necessarily to reach out to businesses and try to attract them to our city. It's the directors. So that is, like I said earlier, a challenge, I think, for our future city manager. We're obviously not in a position today to attack that, I guess you'd say. Now, I have sent Leslie a TML training opportunity, and it's in November, I believe. Not sure where we'll be in November, but it has to deal with this very issue for Economic Development Corporation and how to attract businesses and to see what else is out there for other cities, to see how they're handling that. So as far as tonight, though, we're kind of at a standstill on this. I don't know if, Jan, that was your concern, was the EDC. What are you wanting to see out of this budget that's presented tonight? What's the main objective for the EDC portion?
For the EDC portion is to support the general fund. The EDC since they were established, I think it's been about $12 million. And when I came on board in 2017, the EDC had no money. They had to borrow money to to renovate one of these buildings. They had to borrow money from the developer. And that's why I believe that the money was reversed. I believe that the EDC had intended on paying for Link Street, and then, the money started going down, so it came out of the street fund. So my thought is that now that they do have a healthy funding, is to support the general fund in this particular budget. We don't have, as you mentioned, they do need a strong director. That is what it's going to take. And apparently they haven't had that for a while, because we haven't seen much come out of the EDC for a long time. Even when they hired someone at over $60,000 a year, that didn't happen. So that's the solution that I'm presenting, is that we present to the EDC their opportunity to help the general fund in this budget as they continue to look forward with what they can do with the land that they have.
Is that something that can be put on Thursday's agenda, or has it already been?
It's too late for Thursday's agenda.
Okay.
I would just caution how we're discussing the EDC funds, because they are very regulated in how they can be used. It can't simply be to support the general fund. If you can justify, and I understand you have the justification for that, but I just want everybody to understand that.
Right.
Correct.
The EDC money has been approved by voters to support economic development. And
correct. And and this did fall underneath the economic development projects, and it was already paid for by economic development.
I hear you. I want to make sure we use our.
Yes, and that's why, it is to support the street fund. So maybe let me retract that, and that this is a good opportunity for them to support the street fund for Link Street.
And if that happens, just keep in mind that isn't necessarily supporting our general fund this year. We have not merged those funds yet. That will support the streets fund. So if we do reimburse and you're saying that streets was the one that paid for it, then it will go back to streets.
And then that would what would that do then to, I guess that would
It would help support streets fund balance, which they do need, because currently, I want to say for the past 4 years, the streets fund has had more expenditures than it's had revenue. So every year, the fund balance has been drawn down and drawn down, which is occurring again in fiscal year 22. So pretty soon, we will have to do something. We'll either have to do some type of other support initiative, or we can, like I spoke about couple months ago, merge the street funds with the general fund. The only thing about doing it, eventually we probably will, but if we do it, it's gonna, we don't have a surplus right now in streets. Well, a tiny one, but it's being drawn down and drawn down at this point. So any action regarding the Link Street thing wouldn't necessarily benefit the general fund right now. It would benefit the streets fund balance.
Gotcha. So I don't know if we want to have a separate conversation about the EDCs, the sales tax being split, if y'all want to have a separate conversation about that. So that was just my suggestion there. And then with the EDC also, the EDC, the water fund paid for some land that the EDC has, $171,000. So that's something else that a conversation that can be had with the EDC is to pay the water fund back the $171,000 for the land on Linda Road, or I think it's 501 South Dick Price. And again, I know that doesn't help the general fund either.
Yeah.
So the other question I had was the franchise fee. So your recommendation to us, was to increase the franchise fee from the water fund to the general fund?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so my question that I had asked you, so your suggestion was to increase it from, I believe, 7 to 9?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Yes, 7 to 9%. So my question was, can you give us the history on when the last increase was for the general fund to from the water fund? And the amounts, because there was no amounts given on this. I kind of guessed. I went to the water fund and looked at last year, this year.
Yeah.
And so I, made an assumption, but I was looking for what that amount is.
Okay. So look behind your water sewer fund tab, everyone. And I'm sorry, I couldn't number these pages just yet.
That's okay.
Keep going about your 6th or 7th page after that. At the top, it's going to say water non-departmental. Actually, it's the very last page behind that tab. Go about 4, start at the bottom and go about 4 up. You see admin charge general fund. Those are the amounts that have been historically going from the water sewer fund to the general fund to support administrative duties. Okay, so the first column and the second columns are actuals. In fiscal year 20, and I didn't go back several years. I did go back to 2018. But in fiscal year 20 was when it increased from 355,000 to 370,000. Now, unfortunately, I cannot do an apples to apples comparison because that year, the methodology was different from what I like to use. The methodology that was used that year had more to do with using a percentage of general fund employees' salaries to pay back the general fund. So it was probably ranging anywhere from 3% to 10% of probably city manager salary, finance director, and everybody who works with the water fund. That was the last dollar amount increase. Now, you go to fiscal year 21, you see it decreased, right? It decreased because I like to use more of a percentage methodology. So I looked at water fund revenue.
Right.
What can the water fund afford? And how much time are general fund employees spending doing water duties? So that year we used 7%. And that worked out well for us. But now during fiscal year 21, 20 to 21, really, we did a ton of work in the water fund with transferring the billing and everything that comes along with that. You know, really not only me, but my staff, city manager, public works director, So we felt it appropriate for fiscal year 22 to increase the 7% to the 10% because we're not nearly done yet. We're installing critical infrastructure now to begin receiving water from Arlington. And so 21 and 22 use the same methodology. You take that water revenue, you minus whatever admin charges are going into it, and you take that net water revenue and you times the percent that you want to use. So that's where those numbers came from.
Is the water fund still transferring to streets?
Yes, it does. If you look, your third one up, payment in lieu of street tax, $390,084 for this year.
Okay, so you're suggesting it, because that was, I guess, my question. You're suggesting that increase as well?
I don't remember the exact percentage, Debbie may. I don't remember the exact percentage. It's more than the prior fiscal year. Right. Let me see if I can get what that percentage.
It looked like a 9% when I did the numbers. It looked like both of them were 9%, and then both of them went up a total of $156,414. Yeah. That was what I came up with.
9% sounds about right.
Okay.
And, at this time, that will kind of be more up to council as well. That's just kind of, what we thought. It depends on how much, work, is being done and shared between streets and water. Right now, the water fund really doesn't have employees. So the streets employees are pretty much it.
Yeah. So where I'm coming from on all of this, and my concern is what I want us to be really careful about is when I came on council, the reason that I got involved to begin with was the water rates, right? So, and what part of that was discovered that there was a high percentage being transferred out of the water fund into the general fund and streets. So I have the history on that, and that's why I wanted just the last couple, when the last time it was done, because I had the history on all the other ones from 2017 when I was on council before. And it prior to that, it had gone all the way up to an 11% and a 10% transfer out. And so what we came in and said, that's too much to be transferring out of the water fund. That's one of the things we asked for to be reduced. And so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going back down this slippery path of, transferring more out of the water fund that was needed. Now, in saying that, the water fund has a very healthy fund balance, which it didn't before. Mm-hmm. And we're also not transferring out of the water fund for land purchases and things like that anymore either.
I would say if there's ever a year to do it, this would be a year that we could do it.
Yeah.
And we would have no problem substantiating it,
right,
based on the work that we're doing with the city of Arlington. So
we still haven't paid Arlington yet, right?
We got some invoices outstanding.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so we're looking at about 156,000 is what that looks like additional for us for for that increase, for that 2%?
From, you mean the
Between the 7 and the 9%?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we accounted for the outstanding invoices for the city of Arlington?
No, we have not. I've been begging for invoices since last year. And because what I wanted to do to give the council a more true picture is to have those invoices already processed so that we could roll forward a more realistic fund balance. But no, they're not, they're not ready to invoice us for certain things just yet. So I don't know.
They don't have their money.
And maybe that's something we can discuss, because it's time to revisit that contract. So
Is there the potential pitfall of by increasing the transfer to the general fund, the city of Arlington invoices come in? Is there the potential to leave the water sewer fund at a deficit or a?
no, I don't see a deficit. No, I see, probably a pretty drastic decrease. But if you look in your budget right now, we're looking at like a 80-some% fund balance, which is unreal,
Okay.
So, I mean, I could seriously see that dropping back down into the 30s, but that's still within our policy. So I don't think we'll run into trouble like that for fiscal year 22.
Thank you.
Do we know what's taking Arlington so long to invoice us?
No.
Have I'm sure we've reached out to them, have we not?
We have reached out. Yes, we've reached out. So
And-
they're working on it.
They still haven't provided any kind of a time frame.
No. I've wanted some of these invoices since before our audit so that we could, account for them within that, but that didn't happen. So, but the relationship isn't going anywhere. So even though, the numbers show what they show, Debbie and I always keep a spreadsheet to say, hey, don't forget, they gotta bill us for meter reads. They gotta bill us for utility billing. So we kind of got it earmarked in our heads, so to speak.
Just a question on the water fund. There is a transfer in for the roadway impact fund.
Mm-hmm.
Will you just remind me what that's for? It's a revenue into the water fund from the roadway impact fund. And it didn't show anything, and I don't know if the numbers were just missing for a couple of years, but there was a 187,000 for last year, and then we're proposing 127,525 this year.
Now, as I can understand it, the 187,525 has been a number that has been used for a number of years. My guess is that sometime before fiscal year 17, there was a decision that those impact fee funds owed the water funds for certain capital projects. And so my best guess is that they settled on that number, and you can see for fiscal year 19 and 20, that 187,525 still came into the water fund. It just came from the water and sewer impact and not the roadway impact. You see that?
Oh, so it's the 152 and the 60?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so
Oh,
if you follow that along, and guys, for everybody, look on your water sewer fund tab, the first page after that tab.
Yes.
You see transfer in water impact, transfer in sewer impact, transfer in roadway impact.
Right.
That's what she's asking about. So at some point, that 187,525 was agreed upon, and that had to come from some of the impact fee funds. And so for 19 and 20, it came from water and sewer. Now, for 2021, it came from roadway, because water and sewer impact funds did not have a healthy fund balance to support that any longer. And so we started to take that 187,525 from the roadway. And we're gonna now move forward to now. When we budget originally, we didn't know about all the new development coming in and everything. So now that that's come in, all three of those funds have received significant amount of revenue. And now we're able to go back and continue that transfer in from the sewer impact the water impact is still not in a position to afford that transfer. So this year, we're splitting it between the sewer impact and the roadway impact.
So just to make sure I heard keyed in on, this was a payback to the water fund for something.
I'm not gonna say, no, it wasn't a payback, because to pay back, you have to have borrowed it. And I don't know that happened, and it probably didn't. So I'm pretty sure it didn't, because you can't use money in a water, sewer, and roadway impact fee fund is very restricted. And so what I'm assuming is that there were some projects that the water, sewer, and roadway impact fee fund benefited from. And so they were not paying back, but they were contributing to the water fund. And hopefully if you go back to some minutes or something, you can find, exactly what that was. Because for that to be an exact number like that, for the 187,525, I bet you it was agreed upon.
Well, I'm just wondering at this point if it's necessary. That's where I'm going with who knows what it was for. Is it paid back? Is it even necessary? Can we keep it in the roadway impact fee? That's just where I was going with that.
Okay.
I'll just leave it up there.
Okay.
Maybe it's not necessary anymore. I don't know. And then I had asked for the employee, the 2%, to let us know. I know let's see, it was April, I believe so this was April.
Yes.
Yeah, this April. So this year, there was a vote made by council to go back and give step plan and employees. So I just wanted you to just refresh our memory on what that was, when that was, the time frame, so that in looking at the 2% this year, and also the 2% equals the 200,000. Was I correct on that?
No, not quite, but I do have that broke down for you as well. So if you will go with me to look behind the general fund tab.
Yep, I got it.
Look at that first page.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at what was originally approved for personnel for fiscal year 2021 was 5.2 million.
Right.
So in April, council approved, I don't remember, maybe 760,000 or so worth of for step plans and salary compensation and things like that. And that took us from the 5.6 million to, the 5.2 million to the 6 million, okay? So that's where that is. So if you look on that amended column, that is the budget that we're in right now. We're projecting to spend about that, about that amount. And then we're proposing the 6.2 million for next year. Now, and what that includes, we're going from 6.008 to 6.203. And that does include continued step plans. It includes 2% for civilian employees. And also it includes the salary savings for the employees that we are delaying until the beginning. So I kind of broke it down. So the 2%, you asked specifically, I think, about the 2% for the civilians. So the 2% for civilians, if you go from the amended budget to the proposed, you're looking at about $25,000. That's for the civilians. For the public safety, you are looking at about 102,000. And that's continuing those step plans for public safety. That totals 127,000. And then if you're looking at the salary savings, those are amounting to about 68 to 70,000.
Okay, thank you. So the 2% is equal for the civilians is equal to about 25,000.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I know you were asking about that because employees did just receive, something. And so just for the civilian crew is not as heavy as public safety. So whereas, the civilians, it's a set 2%, where you go over to public safety and you implement step plans, that could be anywhere between 2% and 4%.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, it's very
So that's
different.
why it kind of.
And will we get at some point a presentation on the step plan for the first responders?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. I know that Leslie is working with trying to do interviews for human resources, and I kind of try to keep compensation over that way as much as possible because.
Got it. Thank you. That answers that question.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's job. Let's see. So what I did notice is that in 1 year, the budget has increased in personnel $1 million in 1 year. In 2 years, it's $1.5 million increase just in personnel. From the 2019-20, that was a 4.6, and now we're at a 6.2.
Yeah, from fiscal year 20, yes.
Yeah, so in 1 year, it's $1 million increase. And in over 2 years, it is $1.5 million increase in personnel.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like when I go to the employee count that we've decreased our personnel during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've increased our personnel cost $1.5 million in 2 years. And we've decreased our numbers from 78 to 71.
Yeah, step plans are expensive. I mean, they cost a lot, and they just do. And that's why, at one point I think they were implemented before I arrived. And then at one point they were discontinued, and then they were continued again. Police and fire, they beg for employees. And that's the best way that I can tell you. We had flat out become a training ground for fire. They would come here, train, and leave. And so I think that now James is fully staffed, or nearly as close as he's been. And I think it's very important. I mean, to prevent so much turnover, especially in public safety. I hate to be partial, but, especially in public safety, we will lose people if we don't have some type of market plan in place. That's just factual.
Yeah, well, I'm in full support of our first responders, and I know the community is in full support of them. I just want to be able to answer questions, if someone asks, because you can just look at that page and it jumps out, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to be able to answer that it's due to the step plan. So with what we're doing tonight is trying to address how we bring down the taxes, because that's what we've been asked to do. We've been asked to reduce taxes. Yeah. So the question is, how do we do that? What are we spending our money on? So that was the other thing I heard. Well, we have 4th highest taxes in Tarrant County, and for what? Mm-hmm. So I can say, well, in personnel, I know it did increase, and we're paying for our first responders for a step plan so that we can keep our first responders and actually use our money for something else and not just training.
Yeah.
So
that's the best answer I have, Leslie. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah,
but.
I mean, you're either going to pay for the recruitment and the training, or you're going to compensate your employees and get the institutional knowledge that comes from retention. So,
I asked for, I was still kind of confused about the enterprise, and one of your suggestions was to increase the transfer of the general fund to the capital replacement fund. And you talked to us about the enterprise contract and the plan to pay them off over the next 6 years. And while I like getting out of the enterprise plan, I just wanted to understand it in full and not just in pieces, because that's just the way I am.
Yes.
So did it, and I went back and looked at the capital replacement fund, I believe, and is it a difference of an increase of 124,421?
Let me go to that fund. Yeah, so we're going from a projected 183,000 to 219,000. And I don't know if you've had a chance to review it yet, but I would like to step you through that and kind of what Jan is asking about and what that looks like. Because we can actually pay those vehicles off, every single vehicle that we have, 22 vehicles. Every single vehicle that we have, they will all come up for lease expiration by the end of fiscal year 24. So it's not 6 years, it's just 2 more years. So I talked to you about increasing the transfer from the general fund to the capital replacement fund to begin the process of paying those cars off. I sent you kind of a little chart, and hopefully I made it simple enough, that shows you the progression of getting there. So for year one, which will be fiscal year 22, we would pay off 9 vehicles. We have 9 vehicles that is leases ending in 2022. We would go ahead and pay those vehicles off, own them, and never have to pay them again other than maintenance and operations, right? Regular maintenance stuff. For that year, the payoff amount, and that's why I wanted to do a payoff amount versus a continued lease amount. So for year one, the payoff amount would be 86,000. Okay. Yeah, it's this one. That's one that Leslie emailed to you. Yeah, I didn't print it. If you guys want to jot this down, it's real simple. It's real simple. So for year one, which is fiscal year 22, we will pay off 9 vehicles. Now let's separate the amount of this into 2 categories. What are we paying off versus what leases are continuing? In this budget right here. Some are just budgeted for their regular lease payment.
Okay, so payoff and or continued lease.
So for year one, we're looking at a payoff amount of $86,919. That pays off 9 cars. The continued leases are $132,734. That gives you a budgeted total of $219,663. That is the amount in year one that we will be transferring from our funds to the capital projects, to capital replacement fund. Now, mind you, I'm just kind of talking generally here. Some of these funds are general funds and some of them are streets funds because that's how it is. Some of these vehicles are streets vehicles. So, but that is basically what we'll be looking at for year one. Now, for year two, we will pay off 5 more vehicles. The payoff amount of those vehicles are $48,288. The continued lease part is $106,498 for a total of $154,787. $154,787. You see how that decreased? Because now we have cars that we own and that there are no more lease. This is the last year, fiscal year 24. Fiscal year 24, The payoff amount, $77,261. That is 8 vehicles, the last 8. The continued lease on those will be approximately $59,275 for a total of $136,536. So as you can see, we kind of do bleed out a lot in the first year to kind of fix this thing, because we have to fix it one way or another. If you don't like this idea, we got to figure something else out. But I figure by the end of fiscal year 24, we could pay these vehicles off. Then you're going to have James and Daryl running up here saying, hey, I need a new car. Well, at some point, the hope is that our general fund balance will grow, right? The hope is AV values to grow, to bring in more businesses. I would like to see at some point that we're able to do a $100,000 transfer every year to the capital replacement fund outside of this. We got to get out of this hole first. But once we do, $50,000 will buy and outfit a police car. You buy 2 cars a year, you auction the others off. This is what smaller cities have to do until they get themselves in a position to be able to change out cars that way. So that, if you look go to your tab for Capital Projects Fund, everybody please follow me there, Capital Projects Fund. That second page behind that is the Capital Replacement Fund. Okay, and that is where you see your $219,663 for year 1. And what that does is it saves fund balance, because if you look back to what was approved in fiscal year 2020, look at that fund balance, $115,000. We cannot sustain that with expenditures over $185,000 when you're not adding any money to the fund.
Of course.
And so that's how we're here, and that is what's in your proposed budget for this plan to start fiscal year 22 as year 1 with fixing this thing.
Right. I think you were right. I think there was a tax note that was used, and there wasn't really a plan long-term. So there are things that we are having to, what did you call it? Clean up or?
Clean up,
yes.
Fix.
Okay, fix.
I say fix.
Yeah. And this is one of them. And so my question then would be the split between the general fund and the street fund.
What would that look like?
Well, would that be a way because you had mentioned that the streets had more cars in this?
No, actually, they don't have more cars in this. They have less. Most of these are police cars.
Okay.
And a couple of maybe Chiefs Brown's car or something like that, and maybe a permit car in our senior citizen van. Okay. If you're just looking at actually, I can tell you this real quickly. Let me divide up streets in general for you. For year 1, out of that 219,000, 37,000 of it is streets and 182,000 of it is general.
Right.
Yeah. And then for year 2, but look how much this improves. For year 2, the streets only has 1 car left.
Okay.
Okay. That year they're only contributing 12,000.
Right.
And then by year 3, streets is not paying anything anymore.
Yeah. And when we make the last payment of 59,000, that's it. We're done.
That's it. We're done.
Okay. So when Chief Holt presented to us, he was asking for, and I'd have to go back and look at that.
Yes, he asked for 3 cars.
Okay, so the cars that we're getting, because I think I wrote down somewhere that the cars that we'll be getting from this lease, is he getting any of those cars? So it's, okay, so he just uses what he has currently.
He uses
They're just
what he
used
has.
cars. Okay, so the 3 cars that he asked for, he just doesn't get the cars this year.
This doesn't get the cars this year.
Thank you for that. That helps clear my understanding of that. And I'll pass for the moment.
Okay.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Just have one simple question. So under expenditure summary by department, and it says mayor and council, what are those numbers? Where do they come from?
Let me see.
I mean, I don't even know what, I mean, it's an expenditure, so what is the mayor and council spending?
I believe their main is legal fees. I believe
So what
it's their
that is?
main thing, but let me.
Legal fees?
Yes, and I believe the TML membership is under that. Its legal services are budgeted at $135,000. It pays the $1 per meeting to each person. It's various memberships and like in COG, my department puts that budget together and it's standard each year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and seed money for YAC and theater in the park.
So can I just jump on that real quick before he leaves? So there was a $32,500 increase in that mayor council budget. Was there something specific? Because I didn't go into the detail.
The main thing is going to be attorney fees.
Okay.
Yeah, attorney fees increased by about 20 to 25,000.
Okay.
Right.
So
That page doesn't have, the one I'm looking at doesn't have last year's. Am I looking at the wrong?
are you looking at mayor and council in your budget book?
I am. I wonder if,
So attorney fees, we're estimating them to go from 115,000 to about 135,000. If we use it, we use it. If we don't, it'll go back into the fund balance.
I think I may need to check that page in the online budget. I don't think I updated it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was looking for that as well. I didn't see that.
It's in your budget book.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah.
The one I'm looking at, it says, on the projected 2021, it says 129,025, and then proposed is 173,025. That's what's in my book.
Yeah, I'm looking for the detail and I'm not finding the detailed sheets in here.
It's under the general fund tab, 4th page back,
Yep.
second one down.
Yep, go to the general fund page tab. You're going to see,
Going senior.
if you're at the
library.
senior centers, you've gone too far.
Oh,
You need to go, yeah.
if you're senior, you are too far.
Right. So it looks like there's a,
What's it behind? Because I'm at fire.
So go and keep,
Behind city
still going
manager.
too far.
Okay.
So if you start at the departments, mayor and council are the second department. City, or are they the first? Oh, second, okay. I think city manager is first.
Yes.
And then right after that, it's the council.
Like page 4.
Okay.
Yeah, page 4.
Okay, city manager. Oh, okay. That, it's just not labeled at the top. That's why I missed it. So
Right.
this is mayor and council.
Yeah, mayor and council. And then right behind that is the detail.
Gotcha.
so it looks like there's a $20,000 increase on legal services. And then the other thing would be the special events, which is trunk or treat and the Christmas tree lighting. We didn't budget for those last year. But I added them back in.
And we added 6,000 back in for travel and training for council. We didn't spend it last year, but we're just adding it in case the council wants it.
So if we took because again, we're just trying to find ways to bring the taxes down, right? So if there's, that's why we're bringing this up, is whatever ways we can, whittle out of our budget to help bring. And I do know community is important. It really is. People love the community events and I just want us to know, like, our heart is we want to do that, but the budget says, do we have the money? And, is it a good use at this point based on the situation that we're in? But anyway, that was my question.
Mhm.
Is that all you have, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Degenhart?
One thing that I've seen while going through the budget book is engineering referenced multiple times in multiple sections. Is there a way to get a summary of what we're spending on engineering and how it's broken down between the various departments?
I believe so. I believe that the department heads, my department doesn't use engineering. So I believe the department heads do keep a tally of, what contracts they have with whom. I can tell you one of the biggest ones that we have is with Shield Engineering. And so anywhere in our stormwater, water, any of those funds, those are pretty much probably with either Shield Engineering or what's the other one, Leslie? Freezing Nichols. So
I'd really like to see a breakout
a breakout of that.
of the engineering costs,
By department?
if possible.
Okay.
Yeah. On the topic of engineering, Shield is our primary engineer. We're using them as a third-party engineers. We don't have one on staff.
We do not.
Do you guys know off the top of your head whether they have a standing contract or if it's a hourly basis for their services?
We don't have a contract right now, but they have actually requested one in recent months.
Okay.
That's something that the council can direct us on if you would like to consider.
Quite possibly.
Right. And, that's a discussion that we can have at another time, but
Yeah.
there's not one in place right now.
Okay, thank you. That was the main thing that I had, is getting a better understanding of how that breaks
Okay.
out.
Sure.
Councilmember Connor?
There's just a couple of things that I would like to see added into this budget if possible. I know that we're running quite low on the general fund, but for instance, we gave the 9,800 to the police for assignment pay, but we didn't give it to the fire department for stipend. Can we explain why?
Am I remembering wrong? I thought we did it for both.
I thought we did it for both as well.
Because I don't see that. According to the information that was given, we gave $14,000 for furniture, but the $5,000 was not, it doesn't look like it was placed in there unless I would have the wrong page.
I apologize if I put that wrong. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was just an error.
I think that was an error.
Was that an error?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Apologize.
Yeah, apologize. We can definitely get that added.
Okay. Yes. Also, the police department actually received a grant funding for $98,000 for the canister refill station and the minor equipment category. $10,000 was all that was left to fully give them all that. Why was that not added, if I may ask? Again, it's not in here.
Do you want to?
There were a lot of hard decisions to make.
I would request that be put in,
Okay.
if possible. If we could find $10,000 to give them to fully function that entire grant, $98,000, that helps save the city a lot of money. But I think only $10,000 to give them everything that they need.
Well, the simulator's in place. I believe this would just expand its functionality as far as training, correct? So it's already in place and useful.
Yeah, it's already in place and useful, but it would expand it to its full reach and limitation. Is that correct? Why can't we not have that?
I just wanted to make sure people didn't think we had spent $98,000 on
Yeah.
something and then
Like I
stop
said.
short 10,000.
Yeah.
No, it comes down to just having to make really hard decisions on all of it. So
Okay.
if we're going to add in 10,000, then I would ask that we find a different 10,000 to make up for it though.
Of course. And like I said, that there's, as Jan has alluded to, there's funds that we can transfer around from different departments to help with that cost. Correct?
Well, like he just said, with the street fund, it's a standalone, similar to
Yeah.
water, which in full transparency, will tell you that slipped my mind because I was thinking that it was part of the general fund. And it could be, it just isn't at the moment. So, like, for example, we just talked about the 12,500 that are in the council budget for trunk or treat and yak and seed money and, that's in our budget.
Yeah.
So if there's things like that you want to throw out there as trade-offs.
Sorry, the zero turn mower. Who mows our lawns?
We have a contract.
It's contracted
For lawn
out?
service.
Oh, for a third party?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Just for this complex though, as far as the other mowing, it's done by Public Works,
Okay.
right?
That's right.
Okay. Stan.
Stan knows.
Hey.
I know the EDC pays, they have a contractor, they pay their own. And we have a contractor for our facilities.
This complex here, we pay someone to mow
Yeah.
because there's so much, but then the remainder is mowed by.
The reason why I ask is zero turn mower. Do we have any on hand or are they just broke?
We do have them. They're just in disrepair and older. And we're getting to the point that we're spending more than is wise to keep them in running order.
I believe they asked for more than one or two.
Yeah, they asked for.
Yeah. So we were able to at least add one because they asked for it last year as well. So.
The reason why I ask is because 13,000 is a lot for a mower. I mean, I understand that it's gonna do its job, but if the streets department needs to, they don't contract out, they do it, for everything else except for, specific things. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just this town center park and City Hall, this area right here.
I guess what I'm getting to is, could we probably save some money in contracting out the rest of it instead of having streets do it? Would that cut down on payroll, cut down on that?
That is a question that I would not be able to answer off the top of my head. That would take a lot of calculation right there, but
I would think a public works director would have to.
Yeah, we can look at it once there's a public works director.
Yeah.
I mean, we're giving water to Arlington. I mean, can they come mow our lawns too?
My guess is that a lot of it you lose control. Like,
Yeah.
we're maintaining those medians and, in on Little Road. And so you're losing some control of your image.
Yeah.
And you're not in charge of the staff that's doing things like that. So, I mean, that might be one concern. That's just first
I
blush
mean, I
though.
definitely don't want us to lose our image, but I'm just
Yeah.
$13,000 for a lawnmower.
I hear you.
Just kind of boggles my mind.
But those mowers aren't the ones that you just go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy.
Yeah.
It's commercial grade, so.
But I mean, we can definitely keep that in mind, but I would agree with Lakita. We'd need a public works director on.
Yeah, and let's see, there was one other thing. Wait a second here. Hello.
Where the line item is on the EDC paying for the
Because I didn't see that
land, the
either.
mowing.
The mowing, it's under their special services.
Special service.
Yeah, they pay it out of special services. And I think I jotted down about how much they pay in case it's not evident there.
And Leslie, you said that they pay for all of this area since it's EDC Town Center?
No, I don't believe the EDC pays for City Hall and Town Center. I think they pay for the lots that they own to be mowed. The general fund pays for this complex to be mowed.
So who's mowing ours? Our staff is mowing this?
This complex, we pay a contractor to mow this complex. Our staff mows like the right of ways and the medians and the other facilities.
Reason why I asked is because
Well, actually, fire mows their own facility, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Forgot about that.
So I don't know who is taking care of ours, but they need to be called because,
it's kind of high.
well,
The reason why I ask is,
yes.
Well, and that was a situation that Larry had negotiated the contract right before he left, and it did not actually get executed for a couple weeks.
Okay.
So that was just another one of those kind of things that falls through the cracks. But I believe that we're back on schedule, maybe not.
Okay.
Is it bad outside right now?
yes, it's horrible.
Okay. Stan? Check on the mowing contract. Thank you, sir.
I mean,
Okay.
it looks just,
Sorry, I
Kinda
walked in
nasty
here
outside.
at like 7:30 and
I know, I mean, I have people who would mow for us. I have people call me,
Yes.
I'll do it, I'll do
I'll
it,
do it.
I'll mow. I'm like, okay.
free.
So if you have people just are out here randomly mowing, you won't shoo them off, right?
Liabilities.
it's a liability issue.
Oh,
You can't allow people to mow.
All right, never mind, just kidding.
It is kind of, the reason why I asked is because I don't think that we can justify $13,000 for a lawnmower. Especially when, I feel that if we could have outsourced it just to save a little bit of money, that would help us out a little bit. I think it would overtake the 13,000 to be quite honest with you. And there was one other thing, and it didn't really have to do with any of that up there, but I just can't find it. So
Okay.
I'll come back to it if I do.
Okay, then I want to bring up a couple of things that I'd already sent email to Leslie, and I believe that the two of you had responded to that. Thank you. But the SRO, and as far as the contract for the SRO, the budgeted amount was $212,000, I believe, for 2 SRO officers, and the ISD portion was 83,000, I believe. And according to the contract, it says that the ISD should be paying 50%. So I feel like either we need to be sure that we're collecting the 50% or change that contract to where it states, a set amount. That's a couple of options that we could do. So I don't know if you found out any additional information.
Well, yeah, the contract does say total personnel to include XYZ. Just looking back at what total personnel costs have been over the past few years versus what we've received for SRO, I thought that the 83,000 was more in line because we haven't received half really ever since I've looked at it. And that probably is because the contract is written the way that it is, that it's not a set amount. It's a set percentage, but that percentage is based on hours worked. So if COVID shuts everything down and the SRO isn't, or the SRO is out for whatever reason, like if the SRO doesn't actually work, then we can only bill them for that. And so the 83,000 was kind of more in line with what we've been collecting. We can certainly bump it to the 106 if Daryl is confident that he's gonna be able to bring that in. I can tell you sometimes I haven't had the easiest time with KISD with their billing. So, if Daryl thinks that he can sit there and kind of nudge them to pay what they've agreed to pay, or, then that would work. But in the past, we haven't received half.
And probably we need to look at that contract and amend it as far as the wording on that. if we have a contract, no matter if it's a developer contract or what it is, if we have a contract and it sets out specific guidelines and both parties have signed it and agreed to it, then we need to be sure that there's some type of,
Right.
accountability to make sure that we're collecting or doing what we're supposed to be doing on the contract end.
Right.
And at the same time, the ISD should be informed as well if we had an increase with, the salary increases that we had. That obviously affected the SRO officers as well, I'm sure. You can look here on the page for the SROs, and there was an increase from, 208 to 212.
Yeah.
On the SRO, it's under the general fund tab. After police department, then it goes police SRO program. So, with us having a contract that states a percentage like we do, 50%, the ISD, they would have no clue. Well, what if the city wants to give this SRO officer a big raise? Well, then that just increased their 50%.
Right. Right. I just think, and I agree, and I think with the, honestly, with the change in management at our PD, we may have more success in that area. I think a lot of times it just comes down to standing your ground and saying, no, you're not going to decrease, that invoice because the officer worked and, you owe us half. So, I believe it will increase. I just don't know at this point.
All right. And you brought up a very good point about the COVID. So with that in mind, probably we collected less from the ISD last year because of COVID. So,
yeah.
Yeah, because we have to still pay those officers regardless, right?
Yeah, because that's what we do. And then when something like that happens and we invoice them for that quarter, they say, well, school wasn't open,
But the contract says right now,
and it does. They say there was no school bus or there were, so I think it's just a matter of us holding firm to what they signed off on. So
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. So with that in mind, then that particular item would be increased by 23,000.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that's general fund.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. And then my other concern had to do with our garbage contract. And I don't know, have y'all found anything else out on the last item? My question was about our franchise fee that the city's supposed to be collecting for commercial accounts. And commercial, I mean the dumpsters out here, basically, not small businesses that are being billed the garbage on their water bill. Okay. This has to do with the 10% that we should be collecting for what I'm referred to commercial
franchise fee.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I have not. I looked, and I just apologize. I started going down that road this afternoon. I could not find anything about that particular franchise. It's the only one I couldn't find. But let me get with WC and see if we can figure that out with Waste Connections.
That will be a significant increase in general fund. So I believe we probably by next Tuesday, we should be able to have an answer on that.
I think so.
Okay. And then we also, the city should be receiving, according to the contract, it says twice a year, but I think we need to have it every month for the commercial, a list of all the commercial accounts that Waste Connections is billing, because otherwise we have nothing to justify the franchise fee that we should be getting that month. Right. So,
and I think that kind of goes back to with Fathom, Waste Connections was working directly with them through a lot of that. And so then with the whole transition with Muni Billing and now City of Arlington, I think just kind of got lost in. So I'll find out what's going on with that.
Okay, thank you. And let me think if there was.
Linda, would you like for me to summarize or?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I had one last question before we continue. I'm sorry. You brought up a good point, Linda, about SRO. Just remind me, was that $8,000 for those 2 radios that could potentially save lives in an incident added into the budget or no?
No. I honestly think that we will still be able to buy those radios this year.
I would like to see that because even though I don't have any kids and I don't have anybody in the, ISD, both my sister works for the Arlington Independent School District and I used to go there, so I know their problems. I think those radios are vitally important, especially given the fact of the socioeconomical climate that we live in today. So I would like to see those added in if possible.
I believe the intent that we talked about was that we didn't specifically include them as a new program, but I can tell you 95% of the time when we're about probably only 3 months into the fiscal year, we have savings in police in one way or another. And since those are not a major expense, I really believe we will be able to afford them a few months into the budget.
They're not a major expense, but they're vital.
On that same note, would that be shared savings would that be cost that could be shared with KISD for the SRO officers?
According to our contract, Daryl,
would the cost of the 2 new radios for the SRO officers be something that could be shared with KISD?
Absolutely. In the contract also, there's a fund, it's $6,000 that helps with equipment and uniforms. We can utilize that money for that.
So $6,000 right there, then that would only place $2,000 into as an expense, in my opinion. So I think these are vitally important. I feel that they should be added into where we can actually see them and light on them.
Yeah, KISD will play the majority of the radios.
Yeah, I mean, every second counts, and I don't want to see something that has happened many times around this country happen here, and I feel that it's vitally important that we have those vital few seconds or moments that we can actually radio.
I had a meeting today with the superintendent, so we're both on the same page of what the expenses are going to change. So they're very aware of the increase in the amount.
Well, it'd be nice if the superintendent was here so he can answer some of these questions. Just a FYI. I doubt that'll ever happen, but he should be.
Well, if you're talking about the budget, I'll answer them.
Yeah, that's his budget. So,
Yeah, that's your budget, but I'm just saying, when it comes to SRO and stuff like that, I feel, KISD and the city all need to be on the same page. And right now,
we're working on it. Yeah.
With budgeting, it doesn't seem like we are.
Well, it's not their responsibility to be at our budget meetings, nor is it mine or yours to be at their budget meetings. It's your free choice to attend or not to attend.
But I was.
Well, then that was your choice.
It was, because their budget directly affects ours.
Well,
thank you.
It's not a requirement. I do have a question, Lakita, after Chief brought that up about the 6,000. I think it was 6,000 per SRO officer. Where is that 12,000 in the budget then? Where would I find that?
It's not, I don't believe, is it Debbie? Okay, what we will do is since they've had their meeting and kind of gotten together on everything, let me get with Daryl and see what that number will be, and we can just add that 12,000 number into the increase in the receipt from KISD. When we bump up to the 106, when we go from the 83,000 to the 106, we'll add that in.
Okay, thank you. So by that, we haven't been collecting that.
I don't believe so. I don't
There's
believe
another
so.
12,000. Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Okay. So the park fund, I have a question about parks in general. So the park maintenance fee looked like it increased from 80,000 to 120,000.
Which fund are you on?
I'm on just expenditures by department. The park maintenance.
In the general fund?
Yes, it's under general fund and it's back about 1, 2, 3, 4 pages.
Okay, parks maintenance.
Park maintenance. So it looks like that It was 80,000 last year and it's projected 120,000 this year. So it's a $40,000 increase.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering about that, what that increase was. And I was trying to find the page where it would detail the park maintenance, but I'm sorry, I couldn't find that.
I don't think we've included it yet.
Okay.
Let me verify that. though.
Am I looking in the right place that it was projected to end this year at 80,000, but it was budgeted last year at 122,000?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, you are correct. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 80,000, the actual, and yeah, it's kind of fluctuates, but it looks like there was an 80,000 in 19 and 20, and then it jumped to 100, and the budget was 123,000 with an actual of, it went back down to 80.
Right.
So it looks like it's then being proposed again back up to the 120. So I'm just wondering what that's about.
That may be something we can look at. I apologize. The streets fund budget was, this part of it was recommended by former public works director. And so I don't know really what his methodology was, but let me see what I can find.
All right, because that could be 40,000 right there.
But again, that's the street fund, but
The
of
water-
Well,
course,
that
still.
parks, this is parks maintenance, right? So this would offset the general fund if this was, right? Reduced. This is the general.
Oh, yes, Yeah, you were talking about, well, no, park maintenance is out of streets. So if you're looking, what's at the top of your page that you're looking at?
Expenditure by department. It starts with city manager, general fund.
So
water sewer, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Water sewer fund, street improvement fund. Actually, the parks is under, street improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
It looks like the biggest change is in the water sewer services.
Yeah.
That we only spent about half of what we expected to, which would probably make sense with the splash pad being closed from COVID. I think that's just the difference in the water usage from the splash pad.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And then we're just restoring it back for fiscal year 22.
You didn't have a mowing contract? Oh, for
Right.
parks. So it just didn't get mowed, or we mowed it ourselves? They mowed it themselves. Okay. So we just canceled that for the year. Gotcha.
Yeah, so, we can look at that 40,000, but again, that would be in the streets.
Okay. Well, the other thing, so we did this before where we transferred, so there's the park dedication fund had some additional money in it. And we increased the transfer from the park dedication fund to the street fund, but that really didn't help the general fund then. Okay. Right? So if the park dedication fund, if that was used to transfer money to the street fund, that would not help general fund. Is that correct?
It would not.
Okay. Okay. All right, I have one more question. Well, actually, I have two. Community development shows 4 employees. What are those 4 employees' positions? And I know right now we have 1 that's being filled.
It's our director, our planner 1 position, which was just added 2 years ago. And then there's a permit clerk and a code compliance officer.
Okay, so if we considered, at this point, would there be, since we really don't know, would there be a consideration of maybe a part-time planner? Because we didn't have a planner at all when we had Rachel, we didn't have a planner at all. And then there was a part-time, a full-time, a no-time. Currently. Is that a consideration? Yes.
I am comfortable with that idea. And
I'm comfortable with the idea, only because I know that we've made it without it. And, we had the position for 2 years. For a while, it was vacant. I think if we can get a very strong director.
right. Now,
think that
that said, it might be easier to attract better candidates if they know they're going to have that secondary
help,
person
yeah.
to back them up. So, I mean,
Or,
there are
part-time,
advantages
maybe be, I don't
right.
know.
But that would be a savings, and it's a position that we have not historically had. So,
Right. And that amount is 50?
It's about 50
Okay.
plus benefits.
with salary and benefits.
Okay. So you're looking at.
Well,
like,
no,
what
that's
we're-
just salary. About 42. Okay.
With benefits. So would you be comfortable making the adjustment to this budget?
I can certainly show you what it would look like to reduce it to part-time. Is that do you want an example of what that would look like?
Do we want to
Yes.
reduce it to part-time?
Okay, I can show you what that would look like.
That'd be good.
Do we need to go over further direction on what else needs, what other adjustments there's a consensus on? I mean, I've heard a lot of ideas. I'm not sure what we settled on. Do we need that at this point, or?
I don't know, however you want to do it. I was just gonna summarize this and then you guys can decide.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring you back to this slide. Yeah, we can take a break. That's
Okay, we'll take a short break, 10-minute break, I guess. It is 7:45. 10 minutes. Okay, let's get started again at 7:55. Ms. Sutton, were you going to recap your part the
Yes.
way you understood it? Okay.
Yes. So I wanted to bring your attention back to the tax rate impact summary, because we know that a lot of times that's what this is going to boil down to as far as what we want to actually see our net change in fund balance be, and most importantly, our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. So when I originally presented the budget, Leslie and I talked about not presenting anything to the council with a single digit fund balance. And so we were able to get to 11.1% with the current tax rate. So you can always refer back to this slide to add and subtract from the budget. Total revenues, 8,022,000, okay? If we're adding revenue to that, you just simply add it to that number. For expenditures, the 8.9 million, if we're taking expenditures away, I'm simply going to take it from that number, of course, within its appropriate departments. And then we'll see that net change be different. So keep in mind, at the current tax rate with the expenditures and the revenue that we have, a penny on the tax rate is going to be about $80,000. Okay, so if we want to do anything different with the tax rate, we have to find, if we're going to change it by a penny, we need to find $80,000 to $90,000. I think it's 90,000. It's on your first page in your budget book. Is it 90? Let's be specific here, $89,336. So if we want a penny, we have to find $89,000 someplace else in this budget. Okay, in order to keep the fund balance percentage at 11%. If I change that tax rate and lower it without doing anything with expenditures and revenues, we will not have 11%. So keep that in mind. So with that in mind, I'll tell you what I thought I heard changes that you wanted to see. We wanted to add $9,800 for CERT pay. We wanted to add additional revenue for the SRO, and I'm going to confirm that number with Daryl. I think it may be at least $20,000. We want to see a scenario with the part-time planner and also a scenario with no planner. And that's what I heard so far. Was there anything else that we wanted to see?
I think potentially the revenue on the commercial franchise fee for waste connection.
Mhm.
Yes. And that, of course, would be in the street fund opposed to general fund.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see what it looks like without the 2%,
Okay.
since there was a nice big hefty raise just given.
So you want to see what it is without the 2% for civilians, but you want to keep the step plans for public safety?
Correct.
Is that correct, what you're asking? Okay. For next Tuesday night? Is it?
Okay.
Okay.
And then also a detailed breakout of how we're appropriating engineering costs.
Yes.
Engineering?
Engineering, please. Yeah.
One thing I will point out on that, I think we're also going to need to be very careful about seeing what we're recovering as pass through on that, which it may take a little more time to get those numbers. I don't want to give you a number that we're not actually incurring all that cost. So, okay.
Can we get a total on what is budgeted in total for engineering?
Yes, that should be pretty relatively simple. But I would like to see some actuals on it as well, and then figure out what exactly we are paying versus what we're billing to a developer. So
Depending on what the, well, no, that would be general fund. I'm sorry. I was just thinking, you said we needed to find 80,000 for 1 cent. And I'm like, oh, we may be pretty close here. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Close.
Okay, I think that you have everything. Did another council person have anything additional? I think that was the main concerns. I know you had voiced your opinion about the mower. I personally think that we need that mower.
Well, just bear with me for a second here.
What if we cancel the mowing contract?
Yeah, that too.
Well, then if we did that, would the personnel that we currently have be able to handle that load?
I mean, I don't know the difference because, I'm not that type of person, but what about the $8,200 mower versus the $13,000 mower? Can we switch that? Possibly?
We can. I was just trying to make sure that they had, whoever came in had the power to buy whichever one they actually needed the most, because I don't have that knowledge. So, but yeah, we can swap them out.
I mean, if we swap that out, there's $5,000, there's about a $5,000 savings right there. And then we can go ahead and take a look at the SRO radios, possibly.
But keep in mind that the mower is in streets. So that doesn't help us on the general fund side.
And Stan said they're already short-staffed, so don't cancel the mowing contract.
Yeah, don't cancel. Yeah, let's not cancel the mower, but let's not cancel the mower, but I like to see the difference between the two, if possible.
You want to swap out the mower still? Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
I don't see a big problem there.
I mean, 61 versus 48, I mean, it's just go up and down a couple extra times.
As long as our workers have the tools that they need in order to get the job done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But, and I'd also, like I said, I'd also like to see those radios added in,
Right.
if possible.
It sounded like that the radios could be.
There was talk about it, but it looks like we might be able to get them, but I don't know. I just like to
I
see
think the
budget.
question would be, would the council want to budget, what's the total for two? Is it for 2
8,000.
radios?
It's 8,000.
It's 8,000 for 2?
Yeah.
So the question would be, would the council want to budget for that? Or would the council be willing to wait to see if the police department has savings in the next couple of months to just purchase it? Because city manager has authority within her authority to us, to move that around if she sees where they didn't spend as much in one line item. And I think James was saying he'd rather just see it blatantly in the budget. So that would be up to you guys.
Me personally, I think that they're going to get it, but I would say wait. Right now I'm in carving mode, but I'm in carving knowing that it's going to be there. So I don't want them, I want our first responders to have everything they need, but if you feel like that it would be there without us putting it in, that's what I would do.
I really feel like it will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I could just share, one of the questions I asked when we were on break is, and it was my last question, was under the expenditure summary by department, the non-departmental increased about $156,243 to be exact. So I asked why. And that's a combination of a $20,000 increase for workman's comp and the increase in the general fund to the capital replacement fund that
To pay off the vehicles.
Yeah, the vehicles. So that's why that increased. So just to share that with everyone. Just keep in mind, we still have the possibility of those care funds coming. We just don't know. We can't apply them to this budget. So that's, still out there too. Not that that's, we don't know what it can be used for, but there's still a possibility that that could come in and help us.
Okay, so that was a good recap. I think that we've got everything down. So we will be having another council meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 PM. Is
Yes,
that correct? Okay.
yes, Mayor, 5:30.
So we will continue budget talks at that time. And then I'm sure that you'll have all the information regarding these concerns for that night. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to make an announcement on this too, but September 15th, we have a council meeting, and as well as September the 21st. The 15th is a public hearing.
Correct. And that one's on a Wednesday, actually.
It is.
So that one's not our normal Tuesday night, but it will be at 5:30.
Thank you, Akita. And at this time, there's no further business to attend. I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gary, second by Jan Joplin. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, unanimous. We are adjourned at, what time is it? 8:06.